Hey everyone, and welcome to the second upload of the day based on the opening fixtures for the season. This spreadsheet is one created by Kickest, so the people running the fantasy game in general. They were actually really awesome. They just put out a post and said if you want it, message us. And so I did. I'll put a link to it in the description of the video. Also, this site, which I can't really click on here because of the bottom of the Zoom call thing, but it has some other information as well. So it has a colored fixture ticker, which I don't know why you would use the other one because this one's just great. The bold means that it's a home game. Um, then it just shows how they rate the difficulties of the different teams. In the fixture ticker, it shows last year's point totals, which is really useful for seeing what kind of players or which players did really well based on the type of scoring that exists. It tells you how all the points are scored. Um, I don't really know what's there, but it also shows how to do the coach coefficients and how they work here as well. There's a tab for that, which is really useful as well. So I'll have a link for that. Feel free to click on that, make a copy. If you want to change anything, at least you'll have a copy for your own, or you can just message Kickest directly, um, and they should provide you this as well. Okay, but here is the fixture ticker for Serie as we know it for the start of the season. And one thing that I do want to say is having players with good fixtures for a long time is not as important in this game as it would be in previous games, as you have five transfers every single game week. Okay, and there's no rollover, but it like that almost feels like a wild card per game week. So a lot of transfers can be made every week. So even if you have a player that just has one really good fixture or two good fixtures, but then really bad fixtures after that, it's pretty easy to get them out. You could have an entirely different team every 3 weeks, pretty much. And there's a lot, you can really target teams because you can have up to four players from the same team. So if you're able to get two or three players targeting Cremonese or Pisa every single week, like that might be a strategy to go for here. But we are going to look at the teams at the start, which do have really good fixtures. If you don't want to be locked into any transfers right off the bat, and that can be fine. It's going to be kind of different. In past years, you always want to make the most and use all your transfers throughout the year. Whereas this, if you have a good team and you use four and one's just burnt, that's going to be okay. Um, from what I've seen at the start, it's a lot of the top stereotypical Italian giant teams have the best fixtures at the start. We see Atalanta with a really good set of fixtures here, the only difficult one kind of being Juve in the first six. Um, then we go down. Cremonese does have good fixtures after the first game against Milan. They have four decent fixtures, but it's going to be tough just because it's Cremonese at the end of the day. We did talk about in the manager's video how picking the Cremonese manager could be useful because they will always have a big multiplier. And if they're facing some easier teams at the start of the season, that could be a really good way to pick up some quick points. Fiorentina, aside from their match against Napoli, has some good fixtures, a bit of a cheaper manager there if you want to choose them. If you're looking at getting Moise Kean off the start, that might be a good decision as well. We have Inter has really good fixtures for the first six, aside from a tough game against Juve there. But Lautaro Martinez might be seen getting off to a quick start facing some of these teams. Some of the defenders, Dumfries, DeMarco, stuff like that could be good players to target. We're going to go down to Lazio as well, facing Como, Verona, Sassuolo in the first three, and then a bit of a tougher game against Roma, but two more easier fixtures after that. So if you want to start out with a Castellanos, one of the Lazio defenders, could be some easier points there, and you won't have to sub out probably a lot or transfer out a Lazio player for a few weeks at least. When then we'll have a good idea of the Kickest landscape by that point, hopefully. Any game could be considered a good game for Napoli, um, but they have. I mean, Fiorentina, sure, tougher fixture, but all the way up to like game week 7, I'd say is pretty favorable fixtures aside from Milan in there. And Milan themselves, relatively manageable first three fixtures, and then it gets really tough where you're probably going to not want Milan players for maybe 3 weeks there. But that kind of is the top fixtures there. It's a lot of the top teams, even like Juve as well, but they have in turn there Atalanta and Milan not too long after that. But you might want some Juve players for the first 2 weeks and then transfer them out. Um, but we're really seeing it's the bigger name teams that are having the easier fixtures to start. Aside from Roma has a couple difficult ones earlier on in Bologna and Lazio. Um, but aside from the big teams, that's kind of it. Bologna has been a big team the last couple of years. They might falter a bit this season, but they have two hard fixtures right off the start. So not one blessed with nice opening fixtures. Then we have teams with really hard fixtures start out, and those are generally the teams that you don't want players from. Now we're gonna need to have players from some of these teams to allow us to use our budget elsewhere. But Cagliari, Fiorentina, and Napoli right off the start. Probably not touching them at the start of the season. Como, Lazio, Bologna, and Fiorentina, three of the first four. I it'll give you time as well. Like I would not start with Alvaro Morata in my team, but it'll at least give you a chance to see how he's doing at the start, and maybe if you want to pick him up for the game against Cremonese, or maybe more towards the middle of the season when we get to game week 8, he'll have some good fixtures somewhere in there, so it might be an option then. Genoa has some really tough fixtures outside of their first one, really. They don't really seem like an option until you get to game week 7. Um, Lecce, some tough fixtures, but Kristovic is tempting. But then seeing that they got Milan, then Atalanta, then Bologna in 5 might keep me away from Kristovic. Um, Pisa just looks like they have absolutely atrocious start to the season. It's going to be a really tough start to the season for them. Um, like literally until you get to game week 10 where they had their season lightens up, but they're always, even in those games, going to be the underdog, except maybe against Cremonese. Oh, excuse me. Sorry. Then we have Sassuolo. They do have some good budget options, but an extremely difficult start to the season. So if you want to put some of their budget options in, if they start at the start of the game week, um, and then just sub them out. That could be an option. But Napoli, Lazio, and Inter are three other first four fixtures. It does not look like a fun start to the season for Lazio. And then Torino, even tougher. 6 of their first 7 matches are difficult. Now, I said the manager could be an option here if you really want to play that upside. But I could also see Torino without Milinkovic-Savic not keeping as many clean sheets, and they were never a high scoring team as well. So I don't think that's going to be the way I go, but it could be a strategy for you. And Verona, 3 of their first 5 are tough, but they do have Cremonese in there. But again, they're a weak team in themselves. So you can really see the stereotypical top teams have the good fixtures. The stereotypical, or the bottom teams have some really tough fixtures. It almost looks like Serie wants to see their top teams kind of going undefeated for their first 5, 6 fixtures with maybe one tough week in there. One thing I do find about Serie is when the top teams play each other, all the top teams are playing each other. And I just kind of want to see if this is the case here. So we have Napoli facing Milan, Atalanta versus Juve, um, and then I guess Inter and Lazio have easier fixtures there. But I do find it comes in bunches when the top teams face each other. There's normally multiple of the top teams facing each other in the weeks that it happens. But those are going to be the weeks where you're going to use a lot of your transfers to get them out and take advantage of some of the players, some of that normally you don't pick because they're on a weaker team, but maybe they have a better fixture that week. So that's a week that you capitalize on a Morata, on a Kristovic, on a Berardi, maybe for Sassuolo. So. That's kind of how I'm looking at that. But I do think, like I said at the start, having players with longevity of good fixtures is not as important this year with the amount of transfers that you can make every week. So I do think that is key. Whereas, while some people might see that they have a couple of tough fixtures coming up, like you can take these fixtures for Milan, and even though these are going to be tough fixtures, you can get your Milan players out by game week 5. very easily. Anyway, so that's kind of what I have to say about the fixtures. Not a long video, not going too in depth, but just kind of my strategy about it, how it changes with the Kickest game format rather than the normal Serie A fantasy. Hope you liked this video. Hope it's somewhat helpful. Hope you enjoy the second upload today, and we'll go with the team selection tomorrow. Take care, everyone.